All right, we'll get started in 3 minutes. 3 minutes. All right, thanks for staying today. Good group this afternoon. Appreciate it. Definitely encourage you to, obviously, like I said, next Sunday, we won't have the two sessions of 10:30 and then the 11:45, 50-ish time, growth class time. So just one service at 10:30. But I do encourage you to plan to come to the class, and I'm excited for what the Lord will have through that afterwards. And I know, I don't know every word Ron's going to say, but I know his heart and what he'll be teaching on the subject matter of having and living a balanced life, finding a balanced life. I know it'll be good and helpful to you. So be a part of that if you can. Be praying for the class that, Kevin, I hope you don't mind me mentioning, but that Kevin and I will be working together on. And we're going to do that together, and we're going to, hopefully this will be a foundation and a new class. And I'm excited as a next step that our church that we'll be able to take in this. And hopefully it will be a class for time to come where we'll be able to continue teaching young people, teenagers, through that time for them specifically. Long term, there's a lot of goals and plans and hopes that I have in developing classes and developing different classes for different age groups, even amongst us as adults, even in our class time. And with Ron teaching a series that will begin a step towards some of that as well, and then the teen class as well. And to me, it might just, to you, seem like, oh, it's just a class. And I know we've had classes, different classes before, but to me it is a great step, and it's something that God is doing, and God is building up a few teenagers and helpers and workers to do that. And so I'm excited about that. So I won't be up here myself in the class. So whatever happens, happens. It's all on Ron. So if there's any problems, you just come tell me, and then, no, I'm kidding. But, and I guess I've had to try to get reacquainted with teaching teenagers, and no, but I'm excited about that. So really, honestly, there's not a whole lot of difference. I think teaching adults is kind of more like teaching like the little, no, I'm just kidding. No, there's not really going to be any difference other than just kind of getting them in a room, in an environment that is kind of age appropriate for them, and teaching the Bible to them, the same as what we do to the younger kids, and the same as what we do up here, but just in a way that is on their, in their life stage. And prayerfully, the Lord will allow us and help us to help them and be able to teach it to them in a way that's helpful to them, and with the things that they go through, the questions that they have at that age of life. And it's a critical age, and so we want to be a help to them, and been talking with them, and they're excited. So be praying for them. We have, as of right now, Jalea is 13. She's been, I think she's going, she might be 18, or in 8th grade already, but she's been just going to the kids class with Susanna for a last year or two, and just kind of sits and it helps her and this and that. But, and she's got a really good heart and very easygoing, and kind of almost forgot, like, not forgot, but just she didn't really present, like, hey, I need a class for, but Phil brings his grandson Cam, and then Alfonso brings his son Jeremy, so we want to create a class and do that. So I'm excited about that. I think it's going to be a great step, and hopefully God will use it for their glory, and then just more paths to develop more teachers and helpers and workers and leaders and things along those lines. So be praying for that. All right. This month, we've been talking about the key for 2023. I just wanted to give you some practical helps for making this new year a good year. And just some things that I think can be a help to us spiritually, but even in our daily life, just to be able to look back on this year in the end and feel that, we were able to see the Lord work. We were able to take some steps forward and serve the Lord with our lives. So what was the first one we talked about, if you remember? Who remembers? What was the first thing that we talked about? What was the first key for 2023? Prayer. Pray more. This year, develop a prayer life, something that myself, we always should be working on and growing in. And I think that we don't really trust in prayer as much as what God wants us to. We don't really believe prayer can, it's not that prayer does it, but it's the faith and it's who we're praying to that can work. And so I want to encourage you to pray this year, whether it's pray more or more consistently, or whatever area in your life, take some steps and commit to praying more to see God do more in and through your life this year. And then secondly, what was the second one? Anybody remember? I see Brett's wheels are turning. He's like, I just got college on my mind. No, I was kidding. Anybody remember? Starts with a P as well? Yes, and it was kind of 2 in 1, but purpose and priorities. So learning and establishing, what is the purpose of your life? Do you have purpose? Do you live with a purpose? More than just going to work to get a paycheck, but like, what's your purpose while you're there? What's your purpose in your work? And what is your purpose with your life as a whole? So purpose, and then that helps you to set priorities in your life so that you keep God first. And the priorities that God wants you to have in your life, when you truly have purpose, and then you really establish a set list of priorities. Prioritize things in your life so that things that are not as important don't take away from the things that are important in your life. So establish purpose and priorities in your life. Today, I want to give you one last one. Again, since we won't be here next week, but I did 4. So last week we kind of combined 2 in 1, but this week the last one is eliminate stresses in your life. Eliminate stresses in your life. There's a lot of things in our lives that stresses us out. And sometimes we don't even want to admit that we get stressed. But the truth is there's a lot of stress in our life. And there's a lot of things that we allow in our life that causes stress. And when we allow stress or we don't really deal with it or face it in our life, then it can take over our health, our emotions, which can then affect our health. Like it can affect so much our attitude towards people. It can take away from our priorities and our purpose in life. So all of these are working together. If you don't know what your priorities or how you should set your priorities in order in your life, then pray. So pray. Seek God, and he will direct you. And then set that purpose and priorities. Like what do you want to see, and not just you, but God see and do in and through your life. And then prioritize those things. And then any stress or strain or anything that would take away from that, I want to encourage you to seek those out and to eliminate them. So I just want to give you a few ways this morning, a few ideas on how to do that, what to look for on eliminating stresses. Again, it affects your health, it affects relationships. There's a whole lot that stress really causes. Go with me and to Luke chapter 10. Luke chapter 10. And there's an account here of some time that the Lord had with Martha and Mary. And let's take a look at what happened. Luke chapter 10, verse number 38. Luke 10:38 says, "Now it came to pass as they went that he entered into a certain village, and a certain woman named Martha received him into her house. And she had a sister called Mary, which also sat at Jesus' feet and heard his word." Look at verse 40. "But Martha was cumbered about much serving, and came to him and said, Lord, dost thou not care that my sister hath left me to serve alone? Bid her therefore that she help me. And Jesus answered and said unto her, Martha, Martha, thou art careful and what? Say that word with me. Troubled about many things. But how many? One thing is needful, and Mary hath chosen that good part which shall not be taken away from her. My family moved to New England in 1997. And a man had started a church in Laconia, New Hampshire. My dad came to take over as the pastor of the church, and his plan was to, after he had started and established this church, he was like a missionary church planter, and he was going to go on and start another church. And so he had been praying for a pastor to come in or to be raised up in the church. And he had a daughter that worked in the same school that my parents did and that I attended as a kid. She was actually my fourth grade school teacher in elementary. And one day in, staff devotions before the school day started, she said, hey, pray for my dad. He had started a church out in New Hampshire, and he's looking and praying for a pastor to come in. And my dad's ears, perked up. And after we figured out where New Hampshire was on the map, that began the, what ended up bringing our family to New England. And I'll never forget this in my life. I'll never forget this. My parents had come and visited and candidated and all of that, but then when we officially moved and we got here and we went to meet that founding pastor and his wife at their home and to get to have lunch or dinner or something with them, and it was the first time I had met them. Of course, my dad had been interacting with them for several weeks through the process, and I'll never forget this. We get out of our car and maybe it was, I don't even know if it was the U-Haul still, I don't remember. But anyways, we get there and we start walking to the front door of the house, and they come out, the church planner, the pastor and his wife, they come out, and my dad says, "Hey, how you doing?" And the guy goes, "Oh, I'm cumbered, brother, I'm cumbered." And like had this look in his face. And I remember like as a teenager thinking like, is this like something he's proud of? Like, sometimes we can pride ourselves in busyness and in having so many things. And, some people even like to think themselves as really great multitaskers, but it's actually been proven that no one really is good at multitasking. We can take on so much in our lives because we don't know how to say no to things and we don't know how to say no to people. And we have to be here, there, and everywhere and in the mix of everything, and we have to do this and we have to do that, and we become like that church planner. I don't really know all that he had going on in his life at the time that he was so cumbered, but, or like Mary and be cumbered, be just overwhelmed and be stressed with so many things. And usually we have brought that on ourselves. We have allowed that. This is part of why, honestly, even in our church structure and schedule, even as a church, we can become so busy-oriented that kind of like what we've been talking about on Sunday mornings, that we become prideful in how busy we are as a church. We have all of these ministries and all of these going on, and people don't even come to church to worship the Lord on Sundays sometimes. We come to work and and we're just busy. And then we think we're righteous because of how busy we are. And then you go home tired, and then we miss Jesus. We don't even worship him. And serving has its place, and it is a form of worship, but often we miss the one needful thing, and in so doing, we have taken so much on that we just bring on stress, and it affects our health. It affects our relationships. It affects our work at the workplace, all of these things. And in the short passage of Jesus being in someone's house, I think that it's a picture of what happens, whether it's on a Sunday when we come to church and we are too focused on wanting to be so busy for God that we miss actually being at his feet worshiping him, which is actually the purpose of gathering together. But even our lives should be worship to Jesus as a whole, but we miss him because of all the things that we allow into our lives, and we stress ourselves out. And Jesus is sitting there, and then we look at others while they're sitting at Jesus' feet, and we can think, wow, they're not doing as much as I am. Okay, that's what Martha was doing. Could you imagine? I mean, like picture that in your mind. Like imagine Jesus literally showing up and coming into your house this afternoon. Like if the dishes are still on the counter, okay, I'm pretty sure that any of us, if Jesus actually walked in and sat in the living room, we would forget about the dishes, right? Well, I say that, but maybe some of us would be like Martha trying to clean those dishes, and some of us would be like Mary sitting at Jesus' feet. And Jesus says that there's one thing that's needful. There's one thing that's needful in your life, and that's to worship Jesus, to live your life in worship to him. That's not saying that you can't work. Okay? I'm not saying to quit your job and just live in meditation for the rest of your life and, rack up your bills and debt. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying don't take care of your family. I'm not saying, don't do anything. But what I'm saying is be careful that everything else doesn't take you away from the feet of Jesus, not just on Sunday mornings, but also on Monday and on Tuesday and on Wednesday and on Thursday. When you go to work, the way you treat your coworkers, the way you respond to your supervisors, the way you do your work, all of that should be based on your worship of Jesus, not just the rat race, the rigmarole of work, home, get paid, pay my bills, work, home, so on and so forth. That's why it goes back to having an established purpose. Like, what are you doing? What is the purpose of your life? And really, our purpose of all of God's creation, including us, is to truly worship him. And so many other things can crowd that and can overshadow that in our lives. And we kind of notch out this one time here or there, a couple times a week to go to church, or, and we, okay, that's my worship box right there, And honestly, I'll be honest with you, sometimes I even think like, after a service I'll go home like, I preached too long. I kept everybody at church too long. That service lasted an hour and 15 minutes. I need to keep it an hour. And then, and I'll be honest with you, I've been really convicted about this over the last few weeks. Can we not actually give God a couple hours of the beginning of our week? And I'm not saying that as license that I'm going to start preaching for like 2 hours every Sunday. I'm not going to do that. But I'm saying is, we can scale back and scale back and scale back so much that we end up actually cutting Jesus out because, people, they got to get to lunch. They've got to get to their homes. They got to get back to this. They've got that going on. And I can think like that, like, because I don't want anybody to think we're at church too long. But, like, why can't we actually notch out the day to give to the Lord? And then if there's time, then we plan other things around our worship of Jesus, especially on Sunday, the first day of the week, that we're supposed to be here to be giving to him as the first day of the week, to set our week off with the Lord. I'm just saying, there's so much busyness of life, and when we take on too much, we can really bring on a lot of things that causes stress in our lives, and a lot of things that hinders our, what the top priorities should be in our life, and pulls us away from the purpose of our lives. And so we have to be disciplined in that. So eliminate stresses in your life. Let me just give you a few things. Number one, first of all, assess and identify. So you need to identify what is in your life that's bringing you stress. What is in your life that's cumbering you, that's overwhelming you, that's too much, and that's pulling you away from the Lord. What is it that actually works you up, but it's going to work you up and work you over, but you let it stay there in your life, and it affects the rest of your day, but it's there every day? Like, what is it in your life that is causing stress? Let me give you 3 things to consider when identifying stress. Number 1, what? Number 2, who? And number 3, how? What gives you stress? Who gives you stress? And how do you let it get to that point? There can be relationships we don't want to consider, but there can be relationships in our lives that are unhealthy for us, that actually pull you away from the Lord because they're causing stress. They're toxic. They're unhealthy. And you have to be able to identify that, so then you can go back to your purpose and priority. And if that is pulling you away from what your priorities are, then you've got to identify and set boundaries and understand, is this person pulling me away? Maybe they're actually hindering me. Maybe they're actually hurting me. Or what? Is there something in your life that's causing, and a lot of the stress could be the battle of spirit and flesh. Maybe there's something in your life that is wrong and it shouldn't be there, but you're letting it be there anyways. Or maybe there's decisions that you're making, or a decision you have made, and it wasn't right, but you're not really correcting it, or you're not trying to, work back to what the Lord wants you to do. What is it? A decision, sin, is there a vice in your life? Whatever it might be, what is it that's causing you stress? For Martha, it was cleaning, or whatever she was doing, busy and cumbered about many things. And maybe there's many things in your life that's pulling you away and causing stress and just emotional wear and tear that causes you to not actually be able to spiritually sit and rest at Jesus' feet and worship him and grow as a Christian, because there's too much going on, and you work Jesus into your life around these other things rather than working everything else around Jesus in your life. So who or what is causing stress in your life? And then truly consider, is that something that I can eliminate? Or is there a step or a decision or a different way that I can proceed to keep that subsided in my life? So consider what led to it. Okay, what decisions did I make and what steps did I take that led to this, unhealthy relationship or, this unhealthy thing in my life kind of having a grip on me? And can I do something to change the situation? What can I do to get this out or to cause it to not be at a place where it rises up and actually takes a hold of my life, actually controls me, causes stress in my life? And how can I learn from this situation to not make a similar decision again that also leads to more stress? So assess and identify stress in your life. Assess your life. Maybe you're just too busy. On the flip side, we could get to a place, like I said, where we can do nothing, and there's laziness. But usually it's brought on by many things, as Jesus said to Martha. There's too much. We can let ourselves think, I have to do this. I'll share this. I'll share this. I actually work a side part-time job, and I've been doing that since like November. And a couple years ago, I did that as well, and I was praying about it and felt like it was necessary because my purpose and priority is in my life, as I talked about last week. Number one is God in my life. Number two is my family. And so to care for needs for my family, I felt like this was necessary. But at the same time, priority number three is my role here at the church. And so if I was going to take on an extra side job, I wanted to make sure, and I prayed, and I told Susanna and the kids, talked to them about it, that if I do this and if I take a job, I'm not going to do something that overwhelms or takes away too much of my time, where I'm imbalanced with my list of priorities. I don't want them to think that, I don't want them to see that my life is only church and work and not them. Because here's the thing. There may be a need for me to work an extra job, and at times in life that is necessary. But if that extra job actually takes me away from my family more so, then maybe it actually isn't healthy or good. Maybe there's another way. A couple years ago, and what's funny is that the job that I was able to get right now was something I tried to get a couple years ago, but they said they were hiring, but then I didn't get the job, and then I went and found something else that I thought would work, but it was way too much. It ended up being too much, and I had to assess and evaluate and understand that this was taking too much of my time away. So when I came home from the day, I was super exhausted, and then I just didn't have any strength to muster up to spend time studying and preparing and doing my church responsibilities. And then it made me, sometimes not really relational with my kids as I should have been. I didn't really have energy to play with them or to do things with them or to take them out or whatever it might have been. And oftentimes it led to me being grumpy, and you have to identify and assess. So even though it was a good thing to provide through an extra income, that job in particular was it was too much. And so I had to step away from that. And so I told the family, I said, this is, I'm gonna just, I'm going to check this one thing out. And then God allowed me to get that job as a part-time job that I had tried first of all, and it's been a good balance where I'm just working, just going there for 2 or 3 days a week and just a few hours. Like and it's not exhausting me, and it's not the most money out there. I mean, it's not. So what I'm saying is that there have been times where that extra job was needed, but it was too much. And I could have made myself think, no, I have to do this. And even when it's something that we feel is needful, we think it's needful, but if it's taking away from our actual, for things that are most important in our life, you see, I can trust God to provide and meet the needs that we have, or I can take it into my own hands and I can go and try to do it myself. And when I do that, it's probably going to take away from my actual priorities. And so we have to learn, and then that just causes stress, right? Because then I know I'm not spending as much time with my kids, but I make myself think it's okay because it's helping me provide for them. But then my relationship with my daughter, who's 10 going on 16, what's more important? So sometimes it's really hard, but that's why we rest in the faith that God gives us. And what I'm just saying is I had to assess that. Now, I'm not saying for all of you to quit your full-time jobs, but you know what? There might come a time where that job has become more important to you, or maybe that job is just unhealthy and you need to trust the Lord for something. I don't know. I'm just saying you have to assess and identify. Yes, we need to work and we need income, but does it take you away from what your first priorities and responsibilities are? Is there maybe a better option? Is there a better role or position or schedule that you could maybe work? I'm just saying, if you actually assess and identify, is there a change that maybe you could pray and God could help you to make to better the situation, to alleviate the stress, so that you better worship him, so your life is more centered around him rather than he's kind of like on the back burner, so that you keep your list of priorities as they need to be rather than they control you. So assess and identify. What led to it? Can I do something to change the situation? How can I learn from this to not make the similar decisions again that lead to more stress in my life? Have you ever heard the phrase, I'm too blessed to be stressed? Most people say that, but that's probably because they're actually stressed and they're just trying to speak into existence. But there are things that take our attention and our focus and our time, and there's a lot of balance. Plug for next Sunday. There's a lot of balance that needs to be done and had, but God can help you with that if you keep him first, seek him first, keep your priorities in order, and evaluate the things that stress you out, and it's probably causing stress because you know it's pulling you away from your most important priorities. You know that. You know it's pulling you away from God. You know it's pulling you away from your family. You know it's pulling you away from the Lord or whatever. There's things that you, so assess and identify. All right, number 2, assess and identify. And then number 2, reevaluate what's most important. So Jesus was helping Martha to do this, to identify that she was stressed because she was busy doing all kinds of things, and Mary wasn't, and now she wanted to put the Lord, on Mary to help her out. And Jesus says, no, you need to assess your situation, okay? You're busy about all these things, but you're missing the one thing that's needful. And that is often what happens in our lives. So assess and identify what or who and how the stress is coming, and then reevaluate what's most important. So I've been saying it. What's the most important thing? Worshiping Jesus. Our life living in worship to him. Sitting at his feet. Being with him. Being centered around and on Jesus. And many things that are good can become bad when they take us away from Jesus. So reevaluate. Okay, so I have this extra job, or I have this job, or I have this, and that's really important, but what's most important? So it's not to say, quit your job and don't work anymore. But it might be, okay, well, maybe there's another way that while I'm working here, I can maybe I could maybe find something that would be better, that'll better, open up my schedule or fit better to allow me to, go back to keeping my priorities in life that help me to live towards fulfilling the purpose of my life, right? So reevaluate what's most important. Oftentimes we prove in our lives that we or our busyness is more important. And we want to bash Martha and think, how could she do that? Jesus was there. Well, Jesus is there with you every day, every moment of your life as well. And we do this to him. We fill our lives with so much stuff. Important things and non-important things. Like I told you last week when I went through how I have listed my priorities, I even have in my list a priority is time for me physically for rest and hobbies. We can allow ourselves that, but that's not at the top of the list. The first thing I do with my schedule each week isn't, my hobbies. But they can easily try to start working their way up in our lives, don't they? So when we start to seem out of whack, when there's stress, when there's heartburn, reevaluate. What is most important? Mary or Martha, there's one thing. Now, is Jesus saying that what Martha was doing didn't matter and she never needed to go back to that? No, but he's saying in this moment, you're missing the one thing that's most needful right now. And so, reevaluate what's most important in your life. Number 3, learn to say no to the things or the people that take you away from your purpose, your priorities, or that add that stress in your life. I think this is a hard one. We don't know how to say no at times, and that just adds more stress. Learn to say no. If it is going to pull you away, if it's going to hinder you, if it's going to be unhealthy for you, say no. It could be to a person or it could be to something that you want to do. Learn to say no, or learn to, when you evaluate and you assess and you identify that stressor in your life, learn to eliminate it, get it out. For many over the years, it's been social media. That has something that easily becomes unhealthy and toxic in our lives, but we get to a place sometimes with something like that we think we can't live without it. But, and I say that I know not many of us here are really living on social media. I'm just saying. So it could be something as simple as that. We often use the stereotype or, the phrasing of young kids, all they do is play video games. Well, there might be something in your life that all you do is whatever it is. Could be social media or, what gets you stressed? Well, eliminate that. It's unhealthy. And it's probably pulling you away from the one thing that is needful. So learn to say no. Learn to, when you do identify it, and I think it's hardest when it is a person. It's hardest when it's a relationship. But you realize, man, that is unhealthy for me. It's actually, is that person actually building you up to Jesus and spiritually? Are they helping you spiritually? Or do they actually hinder you? If you're a Christian and all you do when you're with another Christian is bash and gossip and criticize, then maybe you're not a healthy mix. And it's hard to eliminate that, right? It's hard to, or to step away from that. Maybe it's just not spending as much time, or maybe do something more purposeful, whatever it may be. It can be hard to do that. It can be hard to eliminate. It can be hard to say no. But what's most important? Your walk with Jesus, your worship of him. And if it's a person, if it's a thing, if it's an activity, if it's a vice and a sin, if it's if it's work, if it's something, we must realize that, yes, this is our life right now, but we're not living for this earth and the here and now. We're living for eternity, for Jesus. And it might be difficult, but once we remove things out of our lives that are actually causing us stress, we'll be healthier. We'll be, like I told you, I think I talked about last week when I got soda and out of my basically all I drank every day of my life, and sugared up coffee and soda, and actually put in water. See, when you eliminate the things that are toxic, when you eliminate the things that are unhealthy, it allows you to bring in the things that are healthy. And then you'll feel much more free to follow Jesus, to worship Jesus. You'll have more time. Your spirit will be better. There'll be so much help. So learn to say no. Learn to eliminate those things once you identify them that are actually causing you stress, heartache, that you walk away from feeling guilty. If it's not helping you, then you might need to say no to it. And then number 4, just lastly, then just manage your time and your life accordingly. Go back to your set of priorities and begin to establish, whether it's a routine or discipline, but in order to keep a healthy balance, in order to keep a healthy routine and schedule to help you from staying away from that which can creep up and bring more stress in your life. So that's why you've got to assess and identify. You've got to reevaluate what is most important. So it's not even that everything is bad, but there might be some things that are taking too much time or effort or focus, and then pulling you away, causing stress. Learn to, maybe say no altogether to something, or just putting it down on the list, and then manage your time, manage your week, manage your days accordingly to better suit your purpose and priorities. Manage your life in a way that allows you to sit and fulfill the one thing that is needful, and that's worship Jesus. The one thing that will not be taken away from her. You see how that ends, how Jesus says that? Martha, if she never sat and spent time with Jesus and then he left, she could have been then feeling, the guilt of it later, like, oh man, Jesus was here, and I was just too busy cleaning or cooking or doing these other things. He just wanted to spend time with me. He just wanted me to worship him, and I totally missed that. So don't miss Jesus. So worship in Jesus in your life is the most important thing. And again, that's not just a Sunday thing. But don't let things on Sunday pull you away from it. Be committed to that. And then the rest of your week as well. Live in a life that's in worship. Manage your time accordingly that allows you to truly be with Jesus, worship Jesus, spend time with Jesus. So maybe you need to plan ahead. Maybe you need to get more rest, whatever it might be. But as you assess and identify, as you are purposeful in identifying and alleviating and eliminating these things that rise up, and then it'll help you to then plan more accordingly. And I don't want us as a church, nor us individually to, look back on this year and think, well, it's not all about what did we do, but did we accomplish what was most needful? Did we manage our time? Did we steward our time and our resources that God gives us to worship him, to glorify him, to live for him and in his glory well? Or did I allow other things to pull me? Did I allow things to stay in my life that just stressed me out, frazzled my hair out, and made me cumbered about? I'm cumbered. To this day, I've always thought, if I ever see that guy again, I'm going to ask him, like, what were you so busy with, But the thing is we can allow so much. Sometimes we think that, sometimes busyness makes us feel good about ourselves, or we find identity in that. Jesus wants us at his feet. That's the most important thing, worshiping him. Now, we can be busy serving the Lord, and, we can be busy in life, but not so much that it takes us away from Jesus, and it should all come out of and flow from being at his feet. So this year, I encourage you to eliminate stresses in your life. The things that pull you away from fulfilling and keeping order and structure and priority in your life, and specifically keeping him number one and first and foremost in your life. All right? Any questions, comments? All right. Thanks for staying and being a part of class time. Let's pray, and we'll dismiss. Let's attack 2023 without stress-free. I thought about bringing everybody one of those antacid tabs, but no, I'm just kidding. Thanks for staying, though, and I'll be praying on this matter for each and every one of you throughout this year. Let's pray. Father, help us to follow you this year in a way that glorifies and honors you, that helps us to meet and fulfill our responsibilities, but help those responsibilities that we're meeting to be in the right kind of priority, so that we're glorifying and honoring you, and that we're following your will and your way in our lives, and that is truly flowing out of our worship of you and worship for you. I pray that you'd help us to not be so troubled about, cumbered about, busy about so many things that we miss you in our lives. Even if we think we're doing these for you, we can still miss you if we're doing it all in our own strength and out of priorities and missing other responsibilities or other things. So help us to glorify you in this way, and strive to eliminate stresses in our lives this year. In your name we pray. Amen. All right. Thanks for being here today. You are dismissed.